Section 12 of As a Matter of Course. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Cinda J. M. As a Matter of Course by Annie Payson Call. Sentiment versus Sentimentality. Freedom from sentimentality opens the way for true sentiment. An immense amount of time, thought, and nervous force is wasted in sentimentalizing about being good. With many, the amount of talk about their evils and their desire to overcome them is a thermometer which indicates about 5 times that amount of thought. Neither the talk nor the thought is of assistance in leading to any greater strength or to a more useful life, because the talk is all talk, and the essence of both talk and thought is a selfish, morbid pleasure in dwelling upon one's own self. I remember the remark of a young girl who had been several times to prayer meeting, where she heard the same woman say every time that she longed for the true spirit of religion in her life. With all simplicity, this child said, if she longs for it, why doesn't she work and find it instead of coming every week and telling us that she longs? In all probability, the woman returned from every prayer meeting with the full conviction that, having told her aspirations, she had reached the height desired and was worthy of all praise. Prayer meetings in the old Orthodox sense are not so numerous as they were 50 years ago. But the same morbid love of telling one's own experience and expressing in words one's own desires for a better life is as common as ever. Many who would express horror at these public forums of sentimentalizing do not hesitate to indulge in it privately to any extent, nor do they realize for a moment that it is the same morbid spirit that moves them. It might not be so pernicious a practice if it were not so steadily weakening. If one has a spark of real desire for better ways of living, sentimentalizing about it is a sure extinguisher if practiced for any length of time. A woman will sometimes pour forth an amount of gush about wishing to be better, broader, nobler, stronger, in a manner that would lead you for a moment, perhaps, to believe in her sincerity. But when in the next hour you see her neglecting little duties that a woman who was really broad, strong, and noble would attend to as a matter of course, and not give a second thought to, when you see that although she must realize that attention to these smaller duties should come first, to open the way to her higher aspirations, she continues to neglect them and continues to aspire, you are surely right in concluding that she is using up her nervous system and sentimentalizing about a better life, and by that means is doing all in her power to hinder the achievement of it. It is curious and very sad to see what might be a really strong nature weakening itself steadily with this philosophy in water. Of course, it reaches a maudlin state if it continues. His satanic majesty must offer this dose, sweetened with the sugar of self-love, with intense satisfaction. And if we may personify that gentleman for the sake of illustration, what a fine sarcastic smile must dwell upon his countenance as he sees it swallowed and enjoyed, and knows that he did not even have to waste spice as an ingredient. The sugar would have drowned the taste of any spice he could supply. There is not even the appearance of strength in sentimentalizing. Besides sentimentalizing about ourselves in our desire to live a better life, there is the same morbid practice in our love for others, and this is quite weakening. It contains, of course, no jot of real affection. What wholesome love there is lives in spite of the sentimentalizing, and fortunately is sometimes strong enough on one side or the other to crowd it out and finally exterminate it. It is curious to note how often the sham sentiment for others is merely a matter of nerves. As an instance, we can take an example which is quite true of a woman who fancied herself desperately fond of another, when, much to her surprise, an acute attack of toothache and dentist fright put the affection quite out of her head. In this case, the love was a nervous irritant and the toothache a counter-irritant. Of course, the sooner such superficial feeling is recognized and shaken off, the nearer we are to real sentiment. But, someone will say, how are we to know what is real and what is not? I would much rather live my life and get more or less unreality than have this everlasting analyzing. There need be no abnormal analyzing. That is as morbid as the other state. Indulge to your heart's content in whatever seems to you real, in what you believe to be wholesome sentiment, but be ready to recognize it as sham at the first hint you get to that effect, and to drop it accordingly. A perfectly healthy body will shed germs of disease without ever feeling their presence. So a perfectly healthy mind will shed the germs of sentimentality. Few of us are so healthy in mind, but that we have to recognize a germ or two and apply a disinfectant before we can reach the freedom that will enable us to shed the germs unconsciously. A good disinfectant is to refuse to talk of our own feelings or desires or affections unless for some end which we know may help us to more light and better strength. Talking, however, is mild in its weakening effect compared with thinking. It is better to dribble sham sentiments and words over and over than to think it and repress the desire to talk. The only clear way is to drop it from our minds the moment it appears, to let go of it as we would loosen our fingers and drop something disagreeable from our hands. A good amount of exercise and fresh air helps one out of sentimentalizing. This morbid mental habit is often the result of a body ill in some way or another. Frequently, it is simply the effect of tired nerves. We help others and ourselves out of it more rapidly by not mentioning the sentimentalizing habit, but by taking some immediate means toward rest, fresh air, vigorous exercise, and better nourishment. Mistakes are often made, and ourselves or others kept an unnecessary length of time in mental suffering because we fail to attribute a morbid mental state to its physical cause. We blame ourselves or others for behavior that we call wicked or silly and increase the suffering, when all that is required is a little thoughtful care of the body to cause the silly wickedness to disappear entirely. We are supposed to be indulging in sickly sentiment when we are really suffering from sickly nerves. An open sympathy will detect this mistake very soon and save intense suffering by an early remedy. Sentiment is as strengthening as sentimentality is weakening. It is as strong, as clear, and as fine in flavor as the other is sickly sweet. No one who has tasted the wholesome vigor of the one could ever care again for the weakening sweetness of the other, however much he might have to suffer in getting rid of it. True sentiment seeks us, we do not seek it. It not only seeks us, it possesses us and runs in our blood like the new life which comes from fresh air on top of a mountain. With that true sentiment, we can feel a desire to know better things and to live them. We can feel a hearty love for others, and a love that is, in its essence, the strongest of all human loves. We can give and receive a healthy sympathy, which we could never have known otherwise. We can enjoy talking about ourselves and about being good, because every word we say will be spontaneous and direct, with more thought of law than of self. This true sentiment seeks and finds us as we recognize the sham and shake it off, and as we refuse to dwell upon our actions and thoughts in the past, or to look back at all except when it is a necessity to gain a better result. We are like Orpheus, and true sentiment is our Eurydice, with her touch on our shoulder. The spirits that follow are the sham sentiments, the temptations to look back and pose. The music of our lyre is the love and thought we bring to our everyday life. Let us keep steadily on with the music and lead our Eurydice right through Hades until we have her safely over Leith and we know sentimentality only as a name. End of section 12.